everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Jana Burnt, and my family's been attending Calvary for the last 20 years. Most recently, I've had the honor and privilege of working closely with Calvary staff and church council as the church council president these last 2 years. It's been remarkable to see how God has been at work through us, and we have navigated these last 2 years wonderfully. We've doubled down on our mission here at Calvary to lead all people to a lifelong faith in Jesus, to reach those far from Jesus and far from faith. You know, a couple of years ago, our family was really struggling to find a worship experience that would be for all of us. You know, I had my parents in their 80s, and we had siblings and grandchildren, even great-grandchildren, and just trying to find that worship experience that could be for all of us, that multi-generational experience. And we stumbled upon this Calvary at the Lake. And wow, what a blessing that has been to our family. And you know, even today when we have friends that come to the lake for the weekend, they come along to Calvary at the Lake. So it doesn't matter if you've been at church your whole life, or you've never been at church, or you've strayed away from the church. Calvary at the Lake is a place that all can feel welcome and really can find meaning. Our family has been so blessed by this experience. I hope you can find that as well. Join us this summer. Again, our mission here at Calvary is to lead all people to a lifelong faith in Jesus. We strive to be a church where whoever you are, whatever you've been through, you are welcome here. Before we worship, though, we want to share a couple of ways that you can get involved in our mission. In just a couple of weeks, in fact, on Memorial Day weekend, we shift our summer worship schedule. This summer, we will hold 2 services each week, both on Sunday mornings. The first is our traditional service here right at the church at 8:30 in the morning. The second is a unique outdoor experience we call Calvary at the Lake. It's held at Luther Crest Bible Camp on the Lake Carlos. And from my father, Gene, who is 84 years old, to my kids and nieces who are in their 20s, every year we can't wait to worship out at the lake. We worship at 10:30, but come early because brunch is at 9:30. Help us invite the entire community to Calvary at the Lake by picking up one of the yard signs at the hub right after worship today. Now, some churches say they slow down in the summer, but not at Calvary. From Calvary at the Lake to Vacation Bible School, it takes hundreds of willing volunteers like you to help it make it happen. So on Sunday, May 22nd at 4 p.m., we're going to hold a summer volunteer rally. It's going to be a ton of fun. Not only will you get energized and empowered and equipped with tools that you're going to need to serve this summer, but we're going to have prizes, music, summer food, and you'll get your summer ministry t-shirt. Everybody likes a t-shirt. From those with children, we will have childcare that night as well. To register, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the website. Or if you're in person, you can visit the table at the hub after worship. Finally, a couple of weeks ago in worship, you were invited to help us plan for the future. We paused worship and asked everyone to take a survey. Now, we're not going to do that again today, but if you have not yet taken the survey, there'll be some available at the welcome desk, or simply scan the QR code on the screen and you can take the survey on your phone. Your responses will help us better live out our mission to lead all people to a lifelong faith in Jesus Christ. So whether you are new to Calvary or you've been here a long time, your voice is important to us. Take the survey today if you haven't been a part of it. Again, we are honored that you chose to worship with us today. Whether you are online or in person, my prayer is that you experience the love and hope of Jesus. And now, let's worship.
Hey everybody, Pastor Hans here. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Hey, we are in the last week of a worship series which we have been calling Here to there, here to there. We've been talking all about how God is always moving us, that faith is more about movement than it is about arriving somewhere or a destination. And so over the last several weeks, we've been talking about all the ways that God is always moving us. We started the series by talking about how God is always moving us from just getting by to dreaming big. We have a God who wants you to live with big, hairy, God-sized, audacious dreams. And then the second week, we talked about how God is always moving us from our hurts to hope, from hurt to hope. Last week, we talked about how God is moving us from numbing out to leaning in. And today, we're going to talk all about how God is leading us from lashing out. God's moving us from lashing out to loving more. If you missed any of the episodes in this series, I want to encourage you to head out to YouTube, head to our website, and get caught up. Because today we're going to wrap it up by talking about how God is always moving us from lashing out to loving more. And I don't know about you, as I think of the last couple of years of our lives, we've gotten really good as people at lashing out. Would you agree? I think we'd all agree with that. So I want to dive into this by talking to you about my favorite animated movie. My favorite animated movie is a Pixar film that is called Inside Out. Inside Out is this animated film about the story of an 11-year-old girl who's from the Midwest. She's a good Midwestern girl who plays hockey. Her family, unbeknownst to her, announces that they are moving her and their family from the Midwest out to San Francisco. And the movie is really all about the emotions that go on inside this pre-teenage girl as she has to get uprooted from her home here in the Midwest and get carted off to San Francisco. It's all about the emotions inside of her. And you see that in the characters in the film. Emotions like sadness and disgust and fear are all emotions that are animated in this film. But my favorite character in the film is this character here on the screen. This character is anger. And what I love about anger is whenever anger is in the room, anger pushes all the other emotions aside and grabs control of the wheel of Riley's life. It's this great character in the movie. And so when Riley, there's a scene where she's just a little infant sitting in her height chair, and her dad says, I need you to eat your broccoli or you won't get any dessert. Well, inside Riley, anger takes control, pushes the other emotions aside, and has Riley throwing broccoli across the room. Or when she's a teenager, as often is the case, probably a little hormonal, Riley is having a conversation with her parents when anger takes control of the wheel of her life and she blows up at her parents. This character, anger, I love it in this movie because when anger is in the room, anger pushes all the other emotions aside and grabs control of the wheel. And here's what I think. In our world today, haven't we gotten more and more angry? I mean, isn't it true that in all of us, that more often than maybe in the past was the case, anger has pushed other emotions aside and grabbed control of the wheel of our lives? And I want to argue that anger is driving us all to crazy town, huh? You see, here's something I've noticed. Over the last couple of years, our anger has evolved. I mean, remember back when things would sort of slightly annoy us? Somebody cut you off on Broadway, or maybe somebody talked in a movie theater, or you texted somebody and they didn't text you back right away. You get kind of slightly annoyed. But think about today. I mean, everything seems to get escalated. Our anger has evolved. Our anger has caused us to end relationships with people we used to care about. It's hurt our relationships in our families and with friendships. And we've allowed ourselves to get angry about the silliest things. Whether we mask or don't mask, whether somebody vaccinates or doesn't vax, whether someone voted for your candidate or didn't vote for your candidate, whether somebody kneels during the anthem or doesn't kneel during the anthem, whether someone feels the way you do about this school board issue or that school board issue. Our anger has evolved. And we take to social media, we take to letters to the editor, we send nasty emails. Our anger has evolved. There's this great proverb in the Old Testament that talks about anger. It goes like this: for as churning cream produces butter, and as twisting the nose produces blood, so stirring up anger produces strife. And you know this. Over the last several years, we've had more than our share of strife that's produced by this evolution of anger. There's another translation of this passage in the Message translation of the Bible, and I appreciate it even more. It goes like this. Same verse. If you're dumb enough to call attention to yourself by offending people and making rude gestures, don't be surprised if someone bloodies your nose. Churned milk turns into butter. Riled emotions turn into fistfights. Over the last several years, we've had way too many fistfights. We've gone fisticuff. We've had street fights. Here's what you know: we've gotten angrier than ever before. Here's what's maybe unique these days about our anger. We all believe that somehow our anger is justified, don't we? I mean, think about it. We think we're justified in being appalled that that lady, that man, cut you off in the Target parking lot and stole your parking spot. We feel totally justified in being appalled at that volunteer hockey coach who maybe didn't give your kid enough playing time at the game on Tuesday night. We feel totally justified in being appalled that that server who's working the job of 3 different people because the restaurant can't find enough help, that server didn't bring your food in a timely manner. We feel justified. And you might say to me, well, Jesus got angry, Pastor. Remember the story about how he went to the temple? He started flipping over all the tables of the money changers. If Jesus can get angry, why can't I? Well, folks, here's something that you know I do. You and I, we're not Jesus. And here's the thing I love about Jesus. Jesus knew when to flip tables and when to love his enemies. He knew when to flip tables and when to love his enemies. Here's something I've noticed in our world today. Doesn't it seem interesting that Christian people are often some of the most offended people in our world? Have you noticed this? Christian people get so offended because we tie our faith to every issue. And so there's a whole group of Christian people that are offended if you voted for Trump, and another group that are offended if you voted for Biden. There's a whole group of people that are going to be offended if you feel one way about abortion, and another group if you feel another way about abortion. There are people who are offended maybe based on how you feel about the life of gay and lesbian people. We get offended. Christian people get offended by all kinds of things, and I find that curious. There's a great book out there I want to recommend to you. It's called Unoffendable. A guy by the name of Brant Hansen wrote this book. He grew up in a Christian home, and he was led to believe that as a Christian person, it's just inherent that we will be offended. He grew up with this idea that being offended and being Christian go hand in hand. In the book, he makes the argument that being offended is a choice. And maybe Christians need a little different perspective. He says this: I used to think it was incumbent upon a Christian to take offense. I now think, listen to this, I now think we should be the most refreshingly unoffendable people on a planet that seems to spin on an axis of offense. Christian people should be the most unoffendable. We should be the people in our communities that are known as those people who are the love your enemies people, the people that are known as the love your neighbor people. The book of James is arguably, the author is arguably way over concerned about how we live our lives. But there's a passage in James that I really love. It goes like this: understand this, my brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Human anger does not produce the righteousness God desires. He invites us to be quick to listen and slow to speak. If I were to ask you this question, I wonder what you'd say. I wonder, how many times do you think Jesus was asked a question in the New Testament? Any ideas? Jesus was asked questions 183 times. 183 questions were asked of Jesus. Do you know how many he answered directly? He answered just 3 of them directly. On the flip side, do you know how many questions Jesus asked? Jesus in the New Testament asked the people around him 307 questions. Why? Because Jesus was always slow to speak and quick to listen. There's this great story about this teacher of the law, this guy who was really learned. He was really smart. He knew the law left and right. And I don't know if he was trying to trap Jesus or quizzing Jesus, but he went to Jesus and he said, of all the rules that are out there, all the religious rules, all that the prophets said, all that you've been teaching us, what's most important, Jesus? Now, he puts it this way, teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? Jesus replied, you must, say it with me, love. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. A second is equally important. Say it with me, love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law is based on these 2 commandments. I think what Jesus is saying to you and to me, if you consider yourself a follower of me, you always lead with love. I'm going to always lead with love. Here's what I love about Jesus. Jesus didn't call us to be right. Jesus called us to be loving. Jesus said, I invite you to lead your lives with love. I think we know this, but we don't often think about it. The people around us, their hearts aren't changed by our anger. Their hearts aren't changed when we lash out at them. Their hearts aren't changed when we make accusations, when we're judgmental. Their hearts aren't changed by any of that. Their hearts certainly aren't changed when we go to social media, when we post some rant on Facebook. Some of you need to get off of Facebook, people. You know how their hearts are changed? Their hearts are changed by empathy. Hearts are changed by compassion. Hearts are changed by love. You see, if you consider yourself a follower of Jesus, Jesus is suggesting that we, as Christian people, we're called to lead with love. So in the last few minutes I have with you, here's what I want to wonder with you. How do you imagine God is moving you from lashing out to loving more? How do you imagine God is always working in every one of us, moving us from here to there, from lashing out to loving more? And I want to suggest there are 2 ways that God is always moving us. The first is this: God's lowering your expectations of others. Yes, you read that right. God is lowering your expectations of others. Here's the deal. There are people you care about deeply in your life who will forget your birthday. It's going to happen. There are people in your life who will forget to say, I'm sorry. They will resist saying thank you. There are people, friends you will go out with who won't offer to pay for gas. There are people you'll go out, you'll pay for their lunch, and you'll do it again and again about 15 times in a row, and they will be so clueless, they will never offer to pay. They will be clueless. There are people in your life who will not think of the sorts of things you think about. There are people in your life who will hurt you. Do you know why? They are human, just like you. You see, God didn't create any superheroes. There are no real Dr. Stranges or Iron Mans or Captain Americas. We're all just human. In fact, the Bible is really honest about this. Timothy, in the book of 2 Timothy, he writes this: for people will love only themselves and their money. They will be boastful and proud, scoffing at God, disobedient to their parents, and ungrateful. They will consider nothing sacred. They will be unloving and unforgiving. They will slander others and have no self-control. They will be cruel and hate what is good. They will betray their friends, be reckless, be puffed up with pride, and love pleasure rather than God. They will act religious, but they will reject the power that could make them godly. Why does Timothy write this? Because he knows we are all human. We're all human. You're human. I'm human. I, your pastor, am human. I am imperfect. Just ask my wife. And if you're new to Calvary, here's what you need to know. There will come a day where I will say something that will disappoint you. I might even offend you. If you follow me around and listen to what I say and see what I do, it's likely that there will come a day where your pastor will do something that disappoints you. And here's my prayer. My hope is that you don't turn and leave the church, you don't turn and leave God, but rather you recognize that your pastor is just plain human. Here's what I love about Jesus. Jesus was never shocked by people's behavior. Did you know this? You follow Jesus around, you look at his life. He sat down at a well next to a woman, started a conversation. He found out from her that she had been married 5 times. And the man he was shacking up with, well, they weren't married either. Was Jesus shocked? Was Jesus offended? No way. He just loved the woman. He gave her living water, the Bible says. His disciples, they were always arguing. And one time they were arguing about who's the best. Who's Jesus's BFF? Who does Jesus like more than any other disciple? They were like a bunch of junior high kids. Does Jesus vote any of them off the island? No. He just uses them to change the world. Peter, Jesus' favorite disciple, he says, Jesus, I will never deny you. I will never turn my back on you. The minute Jesus is on the cross, the cock crows, Peter denies him. What does Jesus do? Is he shocked? Is he offended? Does he turn his back on Peter? No, he uses Peter to build the church. You see, Jesus was never shocked by people's behavior. How is God moving us from lashing out to loving more? Well, here's what God's doing. God's lowering our expectations of one another. It's interesting, during COVID, it seemed at church, at times, we could never make everybody happy, right? It was a really hard time to lead. There were people who were mad that we were closed, and then there were other people that thought we should stay closed longer. There were people who thought we should be more stringent on masking, and other people who were offended that we were having people mask. There were people who were mad we weren't saying more about vaccinations, and other people who were mad because we said something about vaccination. People got mad. They lashed out. Some people left. Some people quit giving. And in the midst of all that, I had people who came to me and they said, how do you do it, Pastor? I mean, how do you keep this big church moving forward? And it's sort of like, my response was like, this is just how it is. We're all just human. We're all messy. How's God moving us from lashing out to loving more? Well, God's lowering our expectations of one another. And here's the last thing. The second thing is this. God's raising your gratitude for grace. Raise your hand if you've never gossiped, you've never lied, you've never cheated. I'm guessing there's not a hand up out there because we all have, right? The truth is we all have. We all fall short of the grace of God. But Paul says these words. He says, for it is by grace that you have been saved through faith. This is not from yourselves. It is, say this with me, the gift. It's a gift of God. All of us, we look in the mirror, here's the truth of it. We are nothing if it's not for the grace of God. Now, as some of you are hearing this sermon, you're going, yeah, Pastor, I get it, love people. But that guy, he lied to me. Come on, you've lied before. That guy's so arrogant. Come on, you've been arrogant before when you're not at your best. Yeah, but that guy, that woman, she believes that. Can you believe she believes that? Come on, you've believed some pretty crazy things in your life. The truth of the matter is this. We are all human. And we all function, we all survive only by the grace of God. Here's what God is trying to do. This is the way God is moving us from lashing out to loving more. God's raising your gratitude for grace. Now, as I close today, here's what I know. There are a bunch of you that are going through some really hard times. In fact, some of you, I'm guessing maybe there's a spouse that you thought was faithful, but that spouse has been unfaithful, and you found out it's been for a long time. Or maybe there's someone who hurt your kid and you are angry and you're feeling justified in that anger. You see, wherever you're at on the anger spectrum, here's what I know. Anger causes us to say these things. I'm right and you're wrong. I'm justified in my anger and you are just plain wrong. And it causes us at times, if we're not careful, to pick up a stone, to pick up a rock. If you do that to my son, to my daughter, well then I've got my stone. If you vote that way, well I've got my stone. If you feel this way or that way about your thing, well, I've got my stone. If you do this, if you do that, I've got my stone. I'm ready to go to social media. I'm ready to send that nasty email, to make that nasty phone call. I'm ready to write that letter to the editor that might mess up your life. Jesus, in the ancient world, he came upon a group of men that were all holding stones. They were standing in a circle around a woman. And this woman had been caught in the act of adultery. And in that day and age, if you were caught in the act of adultery, the punishment was to be stoned. And Jesus walks up to this group, and what's interesting, he's not shocked. He's not surprised. He's not offended by what this woman has done. And he's equally not shocked or surprised by how these men are carrying themselves. And the story says that as he got there, he got down on his hands and knees and he did something in the sand. It says, but Jesus bent down and he started to write on the ground with his finger. Now, the Bible doesn't say this, but there's a certain tradition that suggests that what Jesus was doing was writing in the sand the sins of all the men who were gathered there. And then Jesus, it goes on to say this. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and he said to them, let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. It was as though Jesus was saying to them, you want to be angry? You want to try and right her wrongs? Well, any of you who haven't sinned, you go ahead and throw the first stone. And the story says that the men, one by one, they all walked away. You see, folks, I wonder, is it time for us to all put down our stones? Jesus invites us, folks, to lead with love. To lead with love. Jesus was always slow to speak and quick to listen. He led with love. You see, Jesus doesn't ask us to be right. What Jesus calls us to do is to love. You see, Jesus invites us to lead with love. How is God moving us from lashing out to loving more? Well, he's doing this. God is always, he's always raising our gratitude for grace. That when we look in the mirror, we see that we are just the same as those people around us. He's raising our gratitude for grace, while at the same time lowering our expectations of those around us. You see, if you consider yourself a Christian, the invitation is this. You're invited to lead with love.
I look around and all I see are burning buildings, barren trees. Hopelessness is starting to wreak havoc. Son of man, I know you see the deepest depths are known to me. You have planted seeds among the ashes. You rebuild, you restore all that's broken. From the ruins, you redeem, you return all that's stolen from your children. That's what you do. So be still, my anxious heart, all that once gone is never lost. Emmanuel is here and he is faithful. So I won't let my praises stop. I'll sing it from these rubble rocks. I know you are good and you are able. Oh, you rebuild, you restore all that's broken from the ruins. You rebuild, you return all that's stolen from your children. That's what you do. You raise beauty from ashes. Yeah, that's what you do. You turn sorrow to gladness. Yeah, that's what you do. I give glory and honor for all that you do. I will sing hallelujah for all that you do. You raise beauty from ashes. Yeah, that's what you do. You turn sorrow to gladness. Yeah, that's what you do. I give glory and honor for all that you do. I will sing hallelujah for all that you do. You rebuild, you restore all that's broken from the ruins. You redeem, you return all that's stolen from your children. That's what you do. Thank you so much for worshiping with us today. Please pray with us the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come and thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Hey, thanks everybody for joining us for worship today. If this is your first time with us, I want to make an invitation. Would you head out to our website? And there on our website, I want to invite you to take a next step. There's a button that says sign up for emails. It's the easiest way for you to get engaged, to find out about everything that's going on here at Calvary. We simply send out a note to you every Friday with all that's going on. We'd love for you to connect in that way. And here's the second thing I want to share with you. In just a couple of weeks, we shift gears here at Calvary and we move to our summer schedule. On Memorial Day weekend, we have just 2 services each week. The first is at 8:30 at the church here in Alexandria, but the second is a unique experience we call Calvary at the Lake that you heard about at the beginning of our service. It's a great opportunity to invite those friends and neighbors who maybe haven't darkened the doors of the church in a good long time. We worship at 10:30. Come early at 9:30 for brunch. As we close our time together, as always, thank you for your generosity. We have such big things planned this summer, and it's all because of your generosity. We have a huge crew of kids that are going, high school students who are going on a transformational trip, a houseboat trip to Rainy Lake. We got tons of kids going to Bible camp. Ooh, we got tons of kids who are already signed up for Vacation Bible School. It's all possible because of your generosity. We're able to pass on the faith to the next generation because of you. So as we close, thank you for your generosity. You can make your offerings today, and one of the ways on the screen, first and easy, is to go to our website. Click on the Give button. There you can make a one-time or reoccurring gift. Probably the easiest way to make a gift is using that app on your phone, Venmo. You can write a check, drop it in the mail, send it to the address on the screen, the church here, or if you're not sure how to give, just give us a call. And we'd love to talk to you about living the generous life that God calls people like you and people like me too. Folks, have a great week.